It is April 22nd, 2020, and we have got a gangbuster of a show for you all today. We are going to be featuring Chip Rogers is back from the American Hotel and Lodging Association with a great update about what is happening on Capitol Hill. Plus, we got a great GM roundtable today, and hopefully in a few minutes we'll have Suraj Patel, who's running for Congress in New York 12. I'm Glenn Hausman. Anthony Melchiorri, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and we've got to figure something out, my friend.
What do we got to figure out, dude?
The show, and I sit there like an idiot, just staring at the camera.
Yeah, I know, but that's kind of the only chance in the show that I get to talk. So I'm going to revel in it every single minute.
I see that.
But more importantly, I'm doing all right today, but I got to tell you, Anthony, there's a lot of serious stuff going on. But before we get into that, I did want to tell you about the struggle I'm having with my my wardrobe. Every single shirt I have seems to look weird on camera. So I think I got to work out some wardrobe issues over here.
I think what you got to do, my friend, is you got to wear a sports jacket. I figured it out. I'm putting on a sports jacket.
Oh, I like that idea. That's very, very clever. Yeah. All right. So while we're waiting for Suraj Patel to pop on the line, we got the first of our general managers on here. Chip Rogers will be on a little bit later. He, of course, has a very busy schedule. So I think we should just get right into a conversation with Grady Colin. He's the managing director of the Garden City Hotel. You might know the Garden City Hotel. We kind of we record checking in with Anthony and Glenn out there regularly, and we've gotten to know Grady over that time. Grady, great to see you, but sorry this has to be remote and under such circumstances. Welcome to the show.
Good to see you guys again. I wish it was live like the old days doing the podcast.
Well, we are live right now. We're being broadcast all over the internet. Yeah,
I miss the man hugs.
Yeah,
but I think they're a thing of the past.
Yeah, they really are. And I was just getting into it. It's the only way I could show affection because, God forbid, I tell people I actually feel. I can't handle that.
I'm not getting rid of my hugs. So thank you so much, Grady. You've been just a bright light for us before this and during this. And when we asked you, hey, can we do our podcast from your hotel? You didn't hesitate. You guys were so accommodating. It really became our comfort zone. Not only was it a great place to do a podcast, but it really became our ritual of having breakfast with your wonderful staff, which were amazing, and then having a drink afterwards. It became like I didn't really care about the podcast. I just wanted to have breakfast and a drink at your hotel. And so thank you for that. And you did that way before this podcast became anything. Now it's as we've been telling everyone, it's the number one podcast in the Valley. It's really become something. And
that's true.
Thank you so much.
To it.
Yeah, the only reason why Anthony and I do the checking in podcast is just so we can hang out at breakfast and then not drink too heavily so we can get back on the road in the afternoons.
Exactly.
So you're for those of you that don't know, the Garden City Hotel is located in Nassau County, not so far out of New York City, pretty decently close to Kennedy Airport as well. But it's been one of those historic hotels that are really meaningful on Long Island, and it's a great property. That's why we love going there, and we can't wait to the day that we could come back there. So Grady, what are you going through? What are you experiencing right now? What has this been like for you?
Well, it's hard to put into words because it's been worse than anything that I've gone through in the last 35 years in the hotel business. And then I was looking at the history of the hotel. The hotel's been here since 1874, and I think of the things it's gone through: the wars, the recessions, the depression, prohibition, and this is a big one. But we're hanging on there. We're still open and sustaining occupancy in the high 20s, but it's a day-by-day thing. We're looking at it each day and not making any promises to ownership, or we don't know where we're going to be next Tuesday.
One of the things that I'll remember throughout this entire run of this pandemic, I'll remember our phone call. I called you maybe day 3, and just to see how you're doing, right? I just called you up and said, hey, man, how you doing? And you answered the phone. I was gutted after I got off the phone with you. I didn't tell you this, and I haven't really spoken about it, but you are an enthusiastic. You worked at the Waldorf Astoria under Eric Long. I don't need to say anything else. I mean, you've worked in the thick of it. You've worked in the biggest, best hotels in the world. You run a beautiful hotel today. And when I heard your voice, you weren't emotional. You weren't sad. You were just like almost shocked, almost like you saw somebody got hit by a car, and a second later, I just asked you, what did you say? And you just almost couldn't speak. Talk about that moment. Do you remember that moment when I called you?
Yeah, I do. It had really just become a realization how big this was going to be,
Right.
and the unknown that was going to be in front of us. And when you're looking at not just the business, you're looking at all of your colleagues that you work with and their friends, and you're wondering how can you sustain this. And somebody's got to figure it out. And then you're sitting in that chair wondering, what are we going to do? I mean, I'm fortunate to work with a great group of really talented people that love this hotel. And our director of sales and marketing has been amazing, and she's really kept us afloat, as the whole revenue team.
Are you talking about the incredible Carol?
I'm talking about the incredible Carol. Yeah.
Awesome. Gentlemen, I just wanted to say that we've got two more of your ilk here. So let's just bring them right in. We got Christian Brocious of the Moxie Times Square and Nick Rimedio of Kimpton, LaPeer, Los Angeles. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Hi, guys.
Good morning.
So I don't know if you know Grady Colin of the Garden City Hotel, but we really appreciate you guys being here today. Thank you.
And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you guys on is what I was saying to Grady behind the stage is you're in it, man. I know Nick. I spent a couple of great nights at his hotel when I was out there, and we got to be friends and hang out. Christian and I have been friends for a while, and he's always taken care of me, and he's allowed us to do the podcast from his hotel. And Grady, we just talked about how great Grady's been. You guys are in the trenches. You guys are dealing with ownership. You're dealing with the government stimulus. You're dealing, in some cases, with the union. You're dealing with your own personal issues. You're dealing with the employees and the guests. There is nobody feeling this more in the hospitality business than the frontline GMs and managing directors. So I wanted to get your perspective, because you're expected to not break. You're expected not to be emotional. You're expected to be a leader. This is why you're in your position. You're not in this position for the last 10 years of growth. You're in this position so when we all get kicked in the nuts, we go forward and we hold on and we take care of our people, our guests, and our owners. And that's what we do. It's who we are. So what has that been like? And what's great is we have Grady, who's out in Garden City. We have Christian, who's right in the middle of everything in Times Square, and we have Nick in California. So we really have really good three perspectives. So why don't we start with the perspective of what's going on in California, Nick?
Yeah, Nick, but before you do that, I do want to ask everybody out there to please share our feed. We got such a great interview here. We'd love for you to share it with all your friends and your colleagues so they could get in on this conversation while we're live as well. Nick, why don't you take it away? Sorry about that.
Sure. Anthony, it's a good thing you wear a cup to work when you take those shots. But I can tell you, in California, it's been so intense. But we're fortunate here. We have phenomenal owners. We have, Kimpton's been amazing to work with, the home office. So the support has been nonstop. It's been really great, gratifying to see the city's response. West Hollywood has been amazing. We have multiple calls every week with the city manager. The communication's been so strong. Similarly to what I remember during 9/11, where you saw the best of people rise and stand up through this, is what I've seen all the way around. On the tough side, laying off 105 people, doing that temporary layoff was the hardest 3 days of my career. And I still get calls from employees every day. And I think the hardest thing about this situation is that it's just the unknown. We have no way of saying that they can come back in 30 days, 90 days, or even longer. That being said, what we're looking at is, the stay-at-home ban being lifted, and everyone's kind of focused on that as they should. But it's really what comes after that that's going to be, I think, the more challenging thing that we haven't thought about, which is health departments that are talking about keeping the social distancing and the gathering caps in place until we have a vaccine. And so we're looking at the possibility of restaurants and bars being granted occupancies at 25 to 50% of what they were originally licensed to do, which for independent restaurants and bars, as well as hotels that have food and beverage operations, that's a tremendous setback. Also thinking about the caps for catering and what that does for private events. And so we're taking a really strong look at that, both as a hotel, but also as a community. I'm fortunate to be chair of our West Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, and that's one of the things that we're looking at, because if that kind of situation holds, there are many restaurateurs that will simply not be able to reopen when the stay-at-home is lifted, which impacts the hotels, because when you're in a city like West Hollywood, which has so many amazing restaurants and bars and a nightlife scene that brings people up from Orange County and from that drive-in market, which we look at as the first viable travel piece to return, if our amenities, if our local scene remains shut down, then that's going to slow the hotel recovery as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Christian, how are you seeing things?
We can't hear you. Well, I can't hear him.
Yeah, Christian, we cannot hear you. The man has silenced Christian. He's too worried that Christian's going to have great stuff to say. Can we hear you now, sir? Nope. Nick, why don't you tell us what Christian was going to say?
Nick, I think you really hit a lot of the things that we haven't spoken about, and that's once the ban gets lifted, what is the new reality going to look like? The new reality is going to look like is we're not going to see staffing levels come back for a good period of time. And, there's people out there in our industry that I'm trying, and Jerry Anzarello said yesterday that we need to stay tough and we need to stay in this industry, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity. And there is, but you have to really think like an entrepreneur. And what you just did is you hit it right in the heart. It's like it's going to be tough, but you're going to have to bear with the industry. Christian, can we hear you now?
Nope. We cannot hear you. But while we're waiting for that, hey, Suraj Patel is here. So why don't you guys stay with us? We'll bring him on. Suraj Patel is a candidate for NY-12 Congressional District in New York. Also happens to have with a family of immigrants. His parents came over here, and his family members are in the hotel business. Welcome, Suraj. We understand that you have a brand new economic plan to help guys like our general managers here get out of this problem should you be elected.
Hello, Suraj. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well.
One of the things I want you to do is we have four general managers, including myself, and managing directors. We are struggling right now. We are, as you know, and we have employees, owners, guests that we're dealing with. And as Nick just said so beautifully, that once the bans are lifted, you're still going to see economic pressure. You're not going to bring back people for probably a long period of time to full capacity. So what does your plan say to the people like us that really need support, and not just Congress going like this, but we really need support. So one of the reasons you're basically, running is to basically help people like us and to give it to us straight, not to give us the crap that we've been hearing in Washington.
You're totally right. I mean, I think that the crap you've been hearing in Washington is part of the reason, obviously large part of the reason we're here. Look, when the government shuts down small businesses, which I live in the East Village here in Manhattan, and that is the ultimate fabric of this city, of this country. Main Street is America. And when the government shuts down our businesses and then begrudgingly offers paycheck protection program type things that run out every 2 weeks, that's not doing us a favor. This wasn't our choice. This was not a moral hazard situation. This is not a situation that anybody, employees, employers, anyone put themselves in, and it was unpredictable. And so these programs, the EIDL, the PPP, are there to try and maintain some semblance of employment. They should have been automatically renewed as soon as they run out. The United Kingdom, for example, is subsidizing 80% of wages for anyone, for any business affected by the coronavirus shutdowns, indefinitely. So, but I want everyone to understand that when I get to Congress, our priorities are going to be employment, the economy, and healthcare. And it is because, and then such a huge part of that then is the hospitality industry, restaurants, and small businesses that employ so many people that have been affected by the shutdown. And I want Congress to understand this. As someone with small business experience and someone that doesn't just, do the Washington talk and listen to lobbyists from major corporations and have their ear. Small businesses need sustained long-term help after this crisis. There is absolutely no guarantee that when you turn on the economy again, it will be anywhere near the occupancy and staffing levels that we were just 4 months ago. And that means we need a sustained long-term commitment from issues such as business taxes, sales taxes, wage subsidies and employment support. And then obviously on the consumer side, some sort of sustained stimulus to keep consumer demand up throughout this period, because this is going to be a weird situation. We don't know how many people are going to be going back to traveling to crowded places. I know restaurants especially are nervous as hell in New York after this kind of hit, to then have to come out in probably what is going to be max 50% occupancy levels allowed by the law, let alone people going. So I think you guys need sustained support after this. This is like the beginning of the marathon. This is the first quarter mile of 26 miles of support that you need. And you should be demanding every single day that you're not doing us a favor, federal government, by doing this paycheck protection, all that kind of stuff. You know, we're doing you a favor by trying to keep people in their healthcare plans, employed to some extent, maybe with reduced hours or something, because we're all bleeding here.
You know, one of the things I'm a big proponent of, I've always said, take care of big business, and big business takes care of everyone. With that said, I truly believe that what we're doing now is people have the wrong image, that big business to everyone is Marriott, Hilton, and the big brands. Okay. And if you save them, you save the hotel community. That is not true. That is the opposite of true. The Marriott and Hilton, they are brand companies, and small mom and pops own the majority of the hotels in this country. So we need to help the small business owner. Yes, we need to help Marriott. Yes, we need to help Hilton. They need to survive. So we could all thrive. But at the most important thing is that everyone needs to understand that the majority of hotels in this country are owned by small business. And that is critical for everyone to remember. So when I hear my friends say, well, Marriott and Hilton, they're all getting bailouts, so you guys will be fine. That is not the case. What you're saying is exactly true. What Nick said is exactly true. You know, what Grady's feeling is true. This is about mom and pops. So the hotel business is built on mom and pops. Absolutely.
I think that's a key component that you should be irate about when it comes to Congress, is that I bet you could call up your congressperson and ask most of them the difference between a franchise business, a small business, and a big corporation, because it's pretty sad that the industry, not just the hotel industry, so many industries have not done a good enough job of educating our Congress, many of whom have been in Congress for 2-3 decades, like my opponent, who haven't been in the real economy any time in their entire lives, educating them about the idea that the bulk of franchise businesses, let's just start with Dunkin' Donuts, Holiday Inn Expresses, Days Inns, those are oftentimes immigrants' first business in America. It is a deal they made because these people are hardworking operators, and you don't have to worry about the branding and the marketing to the American consumer and culture, and they don't have that experience yet. So we're talking about small businesses that are people's lifetime savings in many cases, that are being conflated with big business like Marriott and Hilton. And, I think the hospitality industry does need to do a much better education function of Congress itself. And then I think, there is, I started running for Congress. I'm an ethics professor at NYU. I believe that there should not be corporate PAC money and lobbies going directly to Congress members, so that the same companies that are getting bailouts right now are funding Congress members' re-election campaigns. And I do think that there's a challenge for small business, mom and pop business, and in medium-sized business, frankly, to get the ear of Washington. It almost always seems that the big businesses get those first bailouts. Then there's a blowback. And we say, we need the free market to function on its own, but we're subsidizing major corporations and then leaving small businesses who employ the bulk of our hourly workers.
So if I can interrupt you real quick, if I can please interrupt you for a second, Grady,
sure.
Grady or Nick, what questions you have for someone that is running for Congress that can immediately affect your business and the long-term health of our industry? Do you have any specific questions for him?
I think we're all thinking about, the payroll protection plan and the expansion of that. That was quick to get out there, which was pleasing, but we need expanded parameters of that. And we need to figure out how we can utilize that better.
Right. What
For
about
sure? Well, I mean, to the PPP plan, it has to be expanded. It can't be, the forgiveness of the loan, which was, allegedly the whole intent of the loan was to help small business bring their people back. But if we're saying that they have to, use 75% or more of that money for payroll over an 8-week period from when they receive the loan, that's doesn't make any sense. We're going to be lucky to use that within the 8 months. And so we need a real common sense approach to the PPP loan.
I
think. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Nick. No, you're
No.
You're right. I mean, the plan we put out yesterday, builds another facility for small businesses. There have to be a state-by-state rent moratoriums and help on utilities and things like that if you're going to survive here. But one piece that's been sort of underutilized or talked about that we are pushing hard is testing. There's literally no better economic stimulus than figuring out how to get people back out safely. And the only way to do that is universal testing and then tracing. And I think, we know that the vaccine's at least 12, 16 months away and it's a mass scale. So the only solution we have is test. So I find it pretty absurd that 3-4 weeks ago, Congress left Washington without passing some semblance of universal testing. I find it absurd the president has sort of pushed this aside and said we're too late for testing. But here we are realizing now that it's April 22nd. We're not going to have a normal, in New York at least, until the end of June. We're now talking about allowing public events again. But even after that, I don't know that consumers are going to feel safe to get out if we're not universally testing people and our employees and our frontline employees I count hospitality workers as frontline employees because they're necessary businesses in many cases in many communities. And so we're going to need testing probably before anything else starts.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. All right. So anything else, Suraj, before we let you go? Anything that you want to tell the prospective voters that are out there, and anything else that you think is important for your platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that as a person who has had to, I graduated out of law school in the midst of the Great Recession. Our own family's businesses were over-levered in construction during the recession, and had to do a difficult time of sort of making payroll without taking pay and those kinds of things. And I had to do that personally. I thought, God, never again. We got knocked down with a once-in-a-century recession, and luckily, it took a few years, but here we are, delevered. We're growing again. The economy is good. People are traveling, and then this thing hits now twice in 10 years, unprecedented events. And so I think to myself, God, the last time we recovered way too slowly and did the wrong things in many cases, this time we can't afford that again. And so when I'm running for Congress, it's because, God, I've been through this. And if we want people in office who have actually been through the difficult times in the economy, who've had to sign W-2, who've had to actually make payroll when times are tough, then this is your opportunity to send someone to Washington, guys, from New York City, that doesn't demonize business and Main Street because it's part of the American fabric and wants to help workers and get universal health care. So look, June 23rd is our primary. Would love for anyone out there to, take a look at our platform and support us if you can here in New York City.
Great.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck, my friend.
Good
All
luck.
right, fight's a good fight. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all that you would like to do for us. Man, so that's really good that, we got the candidates' opinion on it. Soon we're going to have back on Chip Rogers to share what's actually been accomplished on Capitol Hill and to help all of you out there find some more solutions to these problems. But Nick, he brought up a good point that this deadline seems to be getting pushed back. That's got to be getting increasingly putting more pressure on you for what you're dealing with and how you think you're going to be going forward. So what was your day like today, for example? What are you thinking about now and as this situation continues to change?
I mean, what I'm thinking about now really is I mean, we've been managing day to day for the last 45 days. And so, we've started a think tank here in West Hollywood with local businesses to say, what does 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and later look like? Because I think that as people we're talking about the new normal, I think we're accepting a version of a new normal that I don't know is necessarily viable for the hospitality industry or any industry. I question, they talk about another lockdown in the fall. I mean, if we are we locking down over November, December, January? That's going to kill retail. That's going to kill, hospitality for destinations that do really well over those holidays. And it's, almost to a point where we don't know when we could bring 70 to 80% of our workforce back. That's a big number. And when you look at the independent restaurateurs who don't have the financial reserves, they may never open up again. And so I think that as an industry, we should be pushing back and saying, what other alternatives are there? How can we look at, creating jobs through building or refurbing malls or other retail spaces into quarantine centers where people could go if they test positive? I think testing is a huge part of it. But for us to fundamentally change our economy in the way that we do things, the social distancing, bars and nightclubs, are we saying that those are dead forever? That's crazy when we think about it. And I just think that we're, without having a lot of discussion about what are the alternatives, we're accepting norms that I think are extremely dangerous for the hospitality industry, not for the next, 6 months, but, potentially for 5 years or longer. When you look at the Great Depression in the 30s, and none of us were there for that, but my grandmother was, I mean, that went on for the better part of 6 years. And I don't think that any of us can fathom a reality like that. And I don't look at this as being negative. I'm just saying I think that we have to step up to the plate. I think that we have to challenge more. And I think that we have to come up with some credible alternatives to protect our jobs, to protect our employees. Because if we don't, there's not going to be a whole lot left to come back to in some of these scenarios that I hear coming down the road.
Grady, what's your opinion?
You spend a lot of your day speculating, and I try to push that out. I think you have to prepare for what you do know. And what I think I know is we're going to be here in the future. People will begin to travel. I don't know which segment will start traveling first, but I think that the immediate concerns in what I think is going to be a transition period from shelter in being lifted to the point where we get an all clear, people are going to psychosomatically have a feeling of concern that they need to visibly see things. So I'm thinking about getting back online. I know it'll be a slow curve, but we're planning on addressing, the sanitizing concerns that are not, and trying to make them both transparent, highly visible for guests coming in. How do you sanitize the building? How do you address those concerns that are going to remain after the all clear? When I check into a room, how do I know it's really sanitized? So that's what we're focusing on now. And then we're focusing on all the modifications, short-term window stuff. I don't have control over months out, and we're going to have to be somewhat reactive to that. And working on contingencies for speculative scenarios doesn't interest me.
Right, Anthony. This reminds me of the conversation that we've been having. You got to look those 3 feet in front of you, right? Or the 3 meters in front of you for this whole, for this whole situation that we're in, because it's really hard to make a prediction about what's going to happen 6 months when we're just rooted in so much change almost every day, right?
Yeah, I truly appreciate both of your opinions, and it's so interesting to me because my brain is working 50% on the way Nick is thinking and 50% on the way Grady is thinking. I'm almost, I guess maybe as I get older, I don't have the energy to think about what's going to happen in 6 months or 3 months. I've learned a long time ago, what's in front of me right now and what's going to be in front of me a month from now. How can I help that. And I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit, we have to push back. We have to talk to our congressman. We have to help Chip doing what he's doing to push and push and push. And we have to be very clear on what we need. But also we need to do exactly what Grady was saying is, I want to know, like I've been there's a lot of pressure on me right now. Everybody's asking me, what's the standard of cleanliness going forward? And on my own company's website, Hospitality Success on Facebook, that we opened up for free right now, people are asking me, and they're all having conversations of fogging and this and that cleanliness. And the answer is, I don't have the answer right now. And I'm working with some experts to get the answer, but I'm not going to speak about it until I am clear on what I think is the best recommendations out there. So that's what Grady and everybody else should be working on. Exactly what he's saying is, when I come into your hotel with me and Glenn come back for our podcast, I want to see Purell. I want to see maybe masks. I want to see gloves. I want to see what you're doing to keep me safe. I want to see that. I don't know if I want to see glasses in the room with water bottles. I don't with water pitchers. I don't know if I want a sealed plastic bottle. Before, a sealed plastic bottle was going out with, bell bottoms. Now I want things that are sealed, whereas before I wouldn't mind one of those big containers in the shower where I press to get some shampoo because I need a lot of it. Now I may want to go back to those small little containers that maybe are in a box on the counter that I know nobody opened and it came right from the manufacturer. So there's so many things to think about. And that to me is what I am most concerned about right now, because once we say, yes, we can go, I'm concerned about everybody half the people doing things right and half the people doing things wrong. And that's going to give me stress. Going into a supermarket and seeing somebody reach over to me to get bologna, is going to give me stress. Right now you're mandated to have a mask and gloves on when you go in the supermarket, and they're only letting a few people in at a time. But once they lift it up, if somebody comes near me, and we don't have a vaccine and we don't know what's going on, and they're coming a couple feet within me, that's going to give me a lot of anxiety. So I think exactly what you're saying. When I walk into your hotel, one of the things about walking to both of your hotels is I know what I'm supposed to feel when I walk into Nick's hotel. I'm supposed to feel younger, cooler, and hipper. When I walk into Grady's hotel, I'm supposed to feel like I made it and I have a BMW outside. So that's the feeling. Whatever hotel I go into, I want to still feel that. I want to feel what your personality is, and I don't want to think about my safety. I want you to think about my safety. And if I see things that are clear and I know you're in control of it, it gets my blood pressure down. So I think, Nick, I 100% think you should be running for Congress or senator or governor in California, because everything you said is 100% what I'm worried about and concerned about. And Grady, from a day-to-day operation, I'm right there.
I should retire, right?
No, I'm right there with you, man. That's how I think. I'm thinking about what can I control. And I've said before, I have a blackout. I'm 14, 15 days into my news blackout. I said, you know what? Today's the day I'm going to start looking at some more news. I opened up my phone. I started looking at the news. I closed it and crawled back in bed and go, I don't want to hear that. All I can do is control what I can control.
Right. It's a bad day to stop sniffing glue, as they say in an airplane, right? but I think there is also a school of thought. Anthony's absolutely correct on one side, but then the other thing that we also need to consider is if there is a vaccine, if there is a sense that we've gotten through this, I think people will be more comfortable and less worried about certain stringencies that are out there over time. But for you guys, it doesn't make anything easier, because you're going to have to be even more tapped into what that potential consumer consciousness is, because you don't want to have too much that's going on, but you also don't want to have too little. And by too much, I mean, if people don't feel that you need to have the masks anymore, that might be something that could alternatively freak them out. What, is this hotel not clean enough that they still have to have the mask? So I don't envy either of you guys having to, walk that particular tightrope. It's going to be crazier than the flying Melendez.
And how are your employees handling, the ones that are employed, cleaning rooms and having to be at work? Are they feeling empowered that they have a job and I want to be here, or are they scared out of their minds?
Ours are so grateful. I mean, they are so happy to be back at work or having sustained work. And, they're following the protocols just like we all are. What didn't seem like it made sense 6 weeks ago, we were worried about wearing masks because we were going to scare guests.
Right.
Now, everyone wants to wear it, and the guests want to see that. So things are going to change. I can't worry about what I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go along. It is kind of like being on a ship, in a fog bank. You'll just deal with what's ahead of you, and you'll come out of the fog eventually.
Yep.
Nick, what are you hearing from your employees that are actually working?
I mean, they're grateful to be here. They're working hard, and right now we're still open. We're anywhere between 5 and 10% a night. We're looking at a year where we hope we could be around 20% through the rest of the year. And that's a scary reality.
Yeah.
For what we can control, absolutely, we're gonna fog those rooms. We're gonna let them sit for 24 hours. We're gonna have different bags for towels and for sheets and for trash for guests to separate those things. We're gonna use every precaution possible. We'll look at different suits that the team may have to wear. IHG has been amazing in putting out guidance, and we'll follow that to a T. That's very simple and straightforward. But no, our team is they're happy to be here, and we hope that we'll be able to bring back a couple more people at a time. I think that's probably the scariest thing from an employee perspective is that it's not like you're going to be able to bring back 20, 30, 40, 50 employees at once.
Right.
It's going to be a trickle. And
right.
So that's really hard when you've got 105 people on temporary layoff, and they're all sitting at home going, when do I get to come back?
Well, I think that's where individually, and I'm just going to say it, you each have to make a decision for yourselves, right? We're all making decisions for ourselves. And so if I'm sitting there and I see that this is a trickle, do I go to a hotel that might be able to sustain me now? Do I change career fields? Do I go into my own business? And one of the things that I want everybody to understand is right now, nobody has a master plan. There's two schools of thought. There's two ways of thinking right now, whether it be Grady's thinking or Nick's thinking. But you have to be thinking for yourself. So if I was an employee of a hotel right now and I see the news and I see what's happening and I see the economy, I said it to Glenn 6 weeks ago. I said, this isn't going to be a recession. This is going to be this close to the depression. And even saying those words, people, I scare people, but I've already had that thought process literally way before everybody else was thinking of that, just because that's the way I think. I don't think doomsday scenario. I think of how do I protect myself scenario. And so that's how employees have to be thinking. That's how everyone's got to be thinking. It's yes, I hope you guys get open. Yes, I hope the hotel industry and the restaurant industry get open. But what we need to do is each person needs to look at their cash reserves, what they think they're able to get through, and then start making plans for themselves. If Nick calls you and if Grady calls you and you get back to work in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, fantastic. But the number one priority right now is every single person has got to think like an entrepreneur, and everyone's got to hope for the best but plan for the worst.
Yeah,
well said.
I absolutely agree with you. So what are you guys thinking then when it comes to having to now add additional costs into your business, right? I mean, we were already seeing softness in the business. It was getting harder to push rates. You were having increased labor costs. So you're getting pushed from all ends over there. Now this, aside from the crazy reality that you may be, like Nick said, at 20% for the rest of the year, you will have to incur all these extra charges. How are you perceiving that? Are you thinking about that at all? Or are you still perhaps just in battle mode, just trying to get through? Grady, how are you considering this?
Well, I'm thinking primarily now about the housekeeping aspect of it. And because that's where I see a lot of additional costs, and I see a lot of additional time being spent in the room to make it right. And I even think about, if I approach a room as a guest, I'd almost like to see it was hermetically sealed, that there's a vinyl decal between the door and the door jamb that says the last person in there sanitized the space, whether it was with a UV wand or a fogger or what have you. But I think for a period, again, I think of it as this transition period. At some point, there will be a normalcy. I don't think life will continue with us considering whether we need to wear a mask today or not wear a mask.
Right.
There'll be the ultimate all clear. I don't know that there's going to be an enormous amount of additional costs. One of the exercises I asked our housekeeping director to perform today was to kind of break down the steps of how we treat a room now by minute. And let's see what we can push to the side that's not going to be relatively important anymore. And some of those are sort of those luxury standards. Are we going to pair shoes? Or are we going to sanitize high touch points? Are we going to spool up their cell phone cord and put a marker in their book? That stuff's irrelevant at this point. You know,
and I don't want you to, and I don't want you touching my stuff. And
right.
you know, one of the things you just said, and it literally filled my heart, is being a hotel, operator. As long as we've been operating, that's where we need to be thinking. We need to be thinking right now, every single detail of every single room, and kind of like the toilet bowl seal that we used to have. It's like
that
this.
sash.
Yeah, we're just talking about that.
Right. That
These
sash.
visual markers.
Right.
What I want, and you just said it, Grady, and I think that this should be the standard. I open up that door, and I almost want a seal on that door, or I want, as soon as I walk in that door, I want to see a sign, okay, or something. Not a sign that you had there yesterday, but a brand new thing that makes me see that this is a brand new seal or whatever it is, that this room has been sealed and protected, and these are the steps we took. And every day it's a new sign, and every day, anytime I walk into that room, a brand new room, I think that you hit it. I think if you do that, you'll be a hotel that sets the standard. And unfortunately, not many people are thinking the way you're thinking. You're the first person, especially you're a managing director. You got a lot of things to worry about, but you're worried about whether we roll up the cord on the phone or whether we leave it alone so we don't touch it. Those are the things we need to be thinking about right now to make me feel comfortable coming to your hotel. And it's not going to be on TripAdvisor saying you have the best service in the world. It's going to be saying I felt safe, I felt secure, and they're on their game. And everybody should be doing it the way Grady and his team are doing it. That to me is how we come out of this. And you get people feeling safe to travel, because I will travel. But I want to, as soon as I walk into that hotel, I'm going to be a maniac if I don't feel safe.
Right. Yeah. Also, Nick, I'm curious because we talk about this housekeeping thing, but I've already been preaching this school of thought about not even bothering to have housekeeping. I've been traveling a lot. My friends and I all seem to not really want that intrusion to begin with, and we've had some issues in the past where hotels are just like, fine, don't worry about it. Do you think perhaps, Nick, that might be coming more into play, and therefore you won't have to do housekeeping every single day, and that might help that cost economic way out for you?
That's exactly it. We're looking at options. Daily service is suspended indefinitely. Turn down service is suspended indefinitely. Mini bar replenishment, and mini bars in and of themselves may now be antiquated to provide the hermetically sealed experience that people may be looking for. Because there you go.
Latex gloves.
Yep. Well, I would say that I think that the mini bar will be very successful. I want to thank Bartek for sponsoring our show for the last 3 weeks over there, because I do, and I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but I think that in the initial parts with the social distancing aspect of it, people are going to still want that food and beverage, alcohol type of a service, and I think that'll be convenient. So if with the gloves, et cetera, I think that'll be good. Hey, Chip Rogers is popping on, so maybe we could just get him on real quick, and then we can continue this this discussion. All right, let's bring him on. Mr. Rogers, thank you so much for being here today once again with us on our live show.
Glenn, it is always the highlight of my day to hang out with you. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. I am going to believe each and every one of those sweet lies that you just told me right there, Chip. But what's going on Capitol Hill? They passed this big bill yesterday. What's it mean for our community?
So the Senate passed it yesterday. The House will take it up tomorrow. They're expected to pass it by a voice vote, but the challenge is you have to have a quorum, because there is one representative in Kentucky who is demanding that there be a roll call vote. And so you'll have to have a quorum, which means half of the members have to travel back to Washington, D.C. to actually be on the floor to vote down a roll call vote so that they can do it by voice vote. It's the craziness that is D.C. Anyway, it'll pass. $324 billion additional for the PPP, which of course ran out of money last Thursday. Another $60 billion for the EIDL, $75 billion for hospitals, and about $20 billion for testing and tracing. That's what's in this package that people are affectionately calling CARES 3.5. The challenge is that the PPP funding, which of course ran out over about a 10-day period, but when you consider the fact that most banks weren't accepting applications for the first couple of days, it's really about a 7 or 8 day period We expect this additional funding to run out in about 5 days. So they'll be back at it again. So I'm not sure why. It's almost like you need new tires. And instead of getting all 4 at once, they're changing them one at a time.
Right. Yeah. But I will give them the benefit of the doubt in saying that they probably didn't realize that this was going to be as deep and certain measures needed to be taken. That being said, they should have taken better care of small businesses to begin with right at the onset of this. But with Chip, I'm confused with what the term EIDL means. What is that?
That's the emergency loans that are also available under the CARES Act. They're smaller in nature generally than the PPP loans. They're not necessarily tied to certain things of the PPP loans, and you have to be able to display that your business has been injured in a certain way. A lot less funding there than the PPP loans, so there hasn't been as much focus on it. But for those people who need immediate cash infusion, even on a limited basis, it can be helpful.
Anything with the PPP change, or are we still talking about that 2.5 month metric? We were hoping to get that up to 4 or 6 months.
Yeah, so that any effective changes will come in the next revision of the law, which will be a lot of stuff. Now, here's what's interesting, and here's what's both concerning and confusing. And Glenn, you just mentioned it, and Anthony, you'll know all about this as well. In the first round of funding from the SBA, the first $349 billion of the PPP, the percentage that went to hotels and restaurants was 8.9%.
Oh, God.
So while the media, who can be very frustrating at times, and now is one of those times, is focusing on stories around Shake Shack, who, by the way, offered to give the money back, and other companies, the reality is that what they got is so minimal to the larger problem that's staring us in the face, and that is all sorts of businesses out there were getting money that were not in industries that were hit. So Shake Shack, yeah, they got some money. They're sending it back. Hopefully that problem will be solved. The reality is they've got no customers. At least they're in an industry that's getting hurt and hurt significantly. There are industries out there that have made themselves available to this loan they're doing just fine. And yet the hotel and restaurants, who we believe account for the numbers I heard yesterday, 35 to 40% of the people that have signed up for unemployment the last 4 weeks are coming from our 2 industries, hotel and restaurant.
Of course.
And yet we've only got 8.9% of the money in the first round of PPP.
So why can't they do, Chip, why can't they do something like the money is going to be available on May 1st. From May 1st through 5th, only businesses in XYZ categories are allowed to apply. They're the ones that are most being affected by this. And then after that, allow some other industries that might have been on the fringes apply.
Because the lobbyists are too strong. That's why. I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah. But you're right. No, everybody's lobbyists. This is clearly the Lobbyist Full Employment Act. What you could do along those lines is create buckets, right? So you have a bucket for hotels and restaurants. So you don't have to wait. The other businesses don't have to wait because some of them are actually hurting. But they could have access to their money. But the bucket reserved for companies that have had a revenue reduction of 50% or more because of coronavirus. And if your business fits into that bucket, that's fine, but they should have access to these resources because it's very frustrating. Again, you hear the sensationalized stories, but the reality is the bigger story is that only 8.9% of that money went to the hotel and restaurant industry.
You know, and it's clear to me that we need some kind of advertising campaign to let people understand what you've been saying, Chip, every time you come on here, is that the big brands and the mom and pops are 2 different entities. The big brands, the Marriotts and the Hiltons, are so critical and important, and they need to be saved. However, the mom and pops are the ones who are footing the bill for the payroll and for the taxes and for the mortgage. And people just don't understand that. And I think that is such a clear message we need to get out to the American people so they understand that Marriott is not the owner and is not the employer of these employees. And it's really frustrating because I get those calls every day. My friends say it to me all the time. It's like, oh, you'll be fine. The Marriotts and the Hilton, they're going to be saved. You have nothing to worry about. You know, your business, your company will come back. Not mine, but just in general, the hospitality business. It's frustrating. Like, how do we get that word out to the American people?
It's two parts. First of all, every single interview I do with media, I point that out. So I'm beginning to believe they know it, but it doesn't fit into the narrative of their story, which is to cast certain, quote, big corporations as the evildoers. And if they can lump those household names like Marriott, Hilton, whatever, into that group of big corporations, they just do it, even though they know for a fact that 90-some-odd% of the Marriott, Hilton, and other large brand hotels are owned by individuals, most of them classified as small businesses. And so we keep talking about it. Believe me, I say it on every interview, and I thank you guys for giving the platform for others to talk about it. But that message is critical. And I think one of the ways we can really start pointing that out is that these small businesses that are now going to go out of business, that is going to hurt your local tax base, because as we all know, occupancy taxes are enormous, and the property taxes on large commercial buildings like hotels, like restaurants, are significant. And local governments, they get it. They understand that it's not Marriott that owns the Marriott Hotel who they collect taxes from. It's Mr. Jones or Mr. Patel or somebody that owns that hotel locally. That's where they're getting their tax base. We got to communicate that message and have locals help us, because when those small businesses go out of business, it's going to really hurt the local revenue.
At this point, I'm starting to think there's an extreme amount of willful ignorance going on amongst politicians and amongst others out there, because we all know the franchise world and how it operates. Who doesn't know somebody at this point that operates a franchise business or works within a franchise business or something like that? So I'm getting tired of the excuses from the government in regards to them not understanding this particular issue. This is an interesting question. Does anyone know if you have to apply again, or if your last application will be accepted for the new funds? Chip, I know you had mentioned something about that the last time we discussed. Any update on that?
Yeah, if your application was already in, then you're fine. The reality is, as I mentioned a moment ago, we checked with the banking industry just a few days ago when the first set of funds ran out. We estimate that there were applications for $1.2 trillion for this program. So if you think about that first 350 that went out the door already, and the next 324 that has just been added, that is just over half of what we believe the applied for amount that already exists, right? So if nobody else applied and they only processed the applications that are available right now, you're looking at over $1 trillion. Some of them won't be valid applications, but let's just say it's $1 trillion. They're still going to be short. But if you have your application in, you should be in the queue already. Whether you get access to the money, not 100% certain.
Is it first come, first serve?
No, and Anthony, that's a great question. We are trying to figure out how the banks are doing this. What's interesting, if you look at where the money went in the first round, there's an enormous percentage, relatively speaking, that went to the construction industry. Now, I know the construction industry is hurting a little bit right now, not nearly as much as hotels and restaurants. But what it makes you understand is that these folks have a continual and significant relationship with their local bankers, because they're obviously putting through all sorts of projects that cost hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. And so they clearly went to the front of the line and they got their money. So there's no set list of this is how it happens. Each bank is doing it based on the relationships that they have. I will say this, in this last bill of that $324 billion to shore up the PPP, about $60 billion is allocated to very small banks. So if you're working with a very small bank, you actually may have more of an opportunity right now.
Oh, that's interesting. Grady, Nick, I'd love for you guys to have an opportunity to ask questions. And Chip, I don't know if you know, Grady is the managing director of the Garden City Hotel in Long Island, and Nick runs the LaPeer Hotel out in LA, a Kimpton property. What about applying with multiple lenders? That's an interesting idea.
Well, where we've heard success is for those folks that are applying with the lender that they already have a business relationship with. So I'm not sure that that's going to help you by going with other lenders. I guess if you're not having success with your big bank, you could ask them to scrap your application. You could start over at a small bank, but I don't even know if that would work right now. But whoever you have your best relationship with, that's where I would take my shot.
Right. Grady, you got a question?
Pertaining to the PPP. Any expansion or flexibility on that? Do you hear rumblings about?
So the requests have certainly been made. The challenge is if all the money goes out in the next 5 days, keep in mind, Congress won't be back until May the 4th. Now, that doesn't mean they're not working on it. They're working on it behind the scenes through phone calls like everybody's doing. But they really couldn't take any official action and debate until the middle of May at best. And so we're assuming that clearly this next round is going to run out of money, like I said, probably in the next week. There's already been suggestions that that's it. Now, if there's no more money, I don't even know if they'll come back and want to change any of the flexibility, which is very problematic, because what we've pointed out is the main areas we need flexibility on are actually the dates. Without getting too technical, the way they determine whether your loan is going to be forgiven is in large part how much you use on payroll. The way they determine how much payroll you have is tied to how many FTE you have. And they're looking at a February 15th starting date. And the way the law is written right now, a June 30th end date. And everybody knows that we're not going to be nowhere back on June 30th close to where we were on February 15th. So what we've asked for is to take that June 30th date and move it to the end of the year. We've not had any pushback on that. Most people agree that that's a reasonable thing to do. The second part, as you know, if you've dealt with these loans, if you've heard with people dealing with these loans, is that once you receive the loan, you have 8 weeks right now to spend the money. And the owners that we're talking to are saying, look, hey, I got the loan. I've now got the money, but what am I going to spend it on in the next 8 weeks? All my employees have been laid off. If I bring them back and pay them, I'm just going to lay them off again, which doesn't seem to make any sense. So we're asking them to change that 8-week period to extend that out, so that when they bring an employee back, they keep them and don't lay them off again.
Right. This is exactly what we were talking about on yesterday's show as well. Anthony?
You know, Chip, what Nick was saying before, and if I can paraphrase him, basically, yes, when we start opening up, it's going to be 20%, 25%, 30%, 35%. The restaurants are going to be maybe half capacity because of the occupancy rules that are going to be laid out in each community. You just said something that is very scary. You said that they said this is it. After this funding, this is it. Good luck and God bless you. That's an impossibility, because the economy will collapse. If you take what Nick said and you take that they said this is it, and we did our best, we're Congress, we're the Senate, we're running out of money too because of the tax base and everything else, and we already have a deficit. The economy will collapse. I mean, when I hear that, and I know that to my opinion, I would imagine your opinion, not talk for you, but that's an impossibility. They will refund it again. They will fund it again, because if not, we're talking about a serious economic collapse that we haven't seen since the 1920s, in my opinion.
Yeah, and perhaps even worse. I mean, unemployment numbers look like they're going to surpass that, at least in the short term. Hoping it's not as extensive as it was during the Great Depression. But Anthony, I think you're right. I believe what's happening right now is posturing. You hear look, politics is now seeping in. This is getting very ugly, and very ugly fast. You hear one side, the Democrats are frankly talking about some things that I personally don't think are really related to coronavirus, like 100% vote by mail across the country, and the Republicans are saying, no, that's going to be rife with all sorts of fraud. We're not going to get into that. And then the Republicans are coming back saying, that's it. We've spent enough money. We got to move on to opening these businesses up, even in some places where it probably doesn't make sense yet. And the Democrats are saying that's crazy. By the way, we need half $1 trillion to help states. And that's another point here. And I don't want to take too much of your time or dig too deep into this.
No, this is great.
Listen, everybody looks for you to come on. So everybody waits with bated breath.
If you want to know where this is headed, here's what's happening. The Democrats are saying, and they're right about this, that there's this enormous drop in revenue at the state level because federal taxes are going down, but the feds can spend whatever they want and incur whatever debt. That's why we have $22 trillion in debt and growing. On the state side, all 50 states have some form of a balanced budget amendment. In other words, they are required to balance their budget. If you remember a few years ago, California had that strange situation where they were handing out IOUs, which was almost like their form of getting around it, which didn't work. But the reality is they've got to balance their budgets. Well, their revenues are dropping like a rock as well. So they've already come to Congress and said, look, we need $500 billion, $500 billion just to bail out the states. Republicans are going to say, wait a minute. If you didn't manage your finances well in California or Illinois or any other blue state, why would we give you money to help bail you out? Whereas these other states have been doing a great job managing their finances, they don't need as much. Whether you agree with that, disagree with that, that's irrelevant. The reality is that is going to be the fight, and that's where the politics starts playing. So when you hear the president and his governors fighting with each other, now, look, he's on great terms right now with the governor of New York, Mr. Cuomo, who seems to be doing a fine job. He's on good terms with the governor of California. He doesn't seem to be on good terms with the governor of Michigan or the governor of the state of Washington. And so that's where these fights are going to pop up. And so it's going to be over voting. You can mark my word. You go back and look at this tape a few weeks from now. It's going to be over voting. It's going to be over bailing out states and cities. And then on the other side, how much money can we get into the hands of taxpayers through payroll reduction, which is what the president is pushing, and other targeted tax cuts, which is what the Republicans are going to want. That is going to be the battleground between now and June.
You know, on one hand, it's good to go back and forth, and it's good to have that. That's why we have two parties, and it's good to have that conversation. On the other hand, what happens when the kids are in the house and mommy and daddy are fighting? There's a lot of stress. So people have stress already. When we see mommy and daddy, the Congress, senators, president fighting, that gives us and our family stress. That's why I shut off the news, because that gives me stress. On the other hand, in some cases, that's good. But we don't want to see, and we don't want to hear, and we don't want the news to tell us about that mommy and daddy fighting in the kitchen. Just leave us alone. Tell us when we have good news. And, you know, we don't need to see the breaking of the eggs. And I think that that's what's giving a lot of my friends and a lot of people I know a lot of agita, because we're seeing this bickering, and we don't need to see it, because we have enough stress.
Anthony, that's why I'm so thankful we got Chip Rogers here to do everything for us, so we can blissfully turn off the news out there. So basically, what you're telling me is Washington and Capitol Hill is running as normal, right?
Well, it's even worse because they're all separated. Like, no one, you can't meet face to face. And again, I don't want to sound like we're not grateful for what they've done already, because they have done good things. No question about it.
I agree.
I think the message we're sending out is, please don't, and Anthony, you put it well, please do not allow this to return to normal of fighting and bickering out over things that don't matter to the American people, right? Let's focus on coronavirus related things that help people get back to work. And if they can't get back to work because of safety, let's give them some money until they can get back to work. That's the only thing we need to be focused on.
Right. And I think so. Let me ask you something that maybe no one's asked you in a while. How you doing, Chip? How you feeling?
I'm okay. Not that I typically share medical stuff, but before all this started, like literally the week before all this started, I got the shingles. And the reason I'm telling you
No way.
Yeah. And I'm still dealing with it, and it's very painful. The reason I'm telling you this is because I didn't know anything about it. So anybody that's around that age 50 time frame, if you have not gotten the shot for shingles, take my word for it. Go get it. You do not want to have to deal with this on top of anything else.
All right. As someone in their near 50 time frame, I appreciate that.
But that's an important. So thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that's so important. Because leaders that look strong and leaders that have the platform that you have, and you look like a guy that can beat the crap out of all of us. You look so strong and so focused, but you're dealing with personal issues, whether it be family or medical issues, but you're still in the fight, and you're still making us feel comfortable. And really, when you come on here, Chip, it's about making our community feel comfortable. We had Jerry Anzarello yesterday. We're getting so many texts and emails about that he like, we needed that fresh air. When you come on here and you give us the nuts and bolts of what's happening, it's giving us air. And that you're doing that under, basically probably not for best of you because of your health. We truly appreciate it. And so when you do come on, it's a blessing, because everybody in this industry is waiting with bated breath for what you have to say. And I know how hard you're fighting for us. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate what you're doing. This thing is, Glenn, I remember when we first started talking about this a long time ago, and you ran this idea by me. And now look at what it's become. Obviously, the addition of Anthony raised your game about 1,000%. But this is fantastic what you guys are doing. I really appreciate it. The platform is wonderful, and you're getting out information that people need. There's a thirst for it, and you're quenching that thirst. So I do have to run to another one of these, but thank you so much. Of course.
Thank you so much. And you're, of course, welcome here anytime, and really appreciate you giving our listeners advice. See you guys really soon, Chip.
Feel good, my friend.
Wow. Feel good, that was awesome. I love having him on.
Nick and Grady, how does that make you feel as operators? Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, let's start with Nick, since Grady spoke last.
It continues to, reinforce my conviction that yes, we have to look at the day to day, but you have to look at the future out, and make sure that we're a part of the conversation. And it's not just about us as hoteliers. It's about being in your communities, in the business community, talking about the federal and the state government with the municipal government. I know in our city, more than half of the revenues are generated by TOT, by the occupancy taxes, by the hotels. So when you have a major disruption like that, you are looking at potential disruption of services that people can't quite fathom. what does that have to do with the hotel business? I mean, if our communities start to break down or to shut down, that's impactful. And so I think it's a multifaceted conversation, and I think it's going to continue to be, and I think that it should be. Something that we haven't talked about yet, though, that I'd like to throw out to the group is testing in hotels, because we're starting to hear, whether it's the temperature guns or other pieces of equipment that are coming down the line, whether it's in hotels or bars and restaurants, that just like that hermetically sealed room that's going to make people feel safe, they want someone there testing them and saying that, yeah, you seem like you're healthy enough to come in the door. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my immediate thought is that it's a given. But with that said, is that really making anyone feel safer? Because just because you don't have a fever doesn't mean you don't have the coronavirus. Grady, what do you think?
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. I'd be a follower on that in terms of I'm a little intellectually at a loss, ignorant on whether the proper protocol is to test guests, to test your employees at the employee entrance, and if the health organization, CDC, and such issue guidelines for that, obviously you'd comply. Otherwise, I don't know. Not sure about that.
I'm a little concerned about it. Yeah, Anthony, sorry, go on.
I'm sorry. To me, it's like having a camera at the front desk that no one's watching. It gives the employee and the guest like, hey, that they're watching, I feel safe. I'm in the hallway and there's a camera and I feel safe. If I'm going to my room, no one's going to attack me. And if they do, there's somebody watching me. Same thing with the temperature. To me, it's like, yeah, I take your temperature, but that doesn't mean you don't have the coronavirus. So on one hand, it makes you feel better, but is it really doing anything? So I kind of have to agree with Grady.
Yep.
And I don't think anybody's agreeing or disagreeing, but I think I want to know if that is a good form of making sure everybody is safe. And again, I talk to my doctor friend who's on the front lines every day. And, he's telling me things that, 30% of testing is false positive and so many things. So there's so much that we don't know.
Well,
so
that's it,
would it make me feel better? Yes. But does it do anything? I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
There's a total information overload. The people that I work with day to day right now, the executives are coming in with sound bites of, why don't we do this? I heard this, I heard that. I think as hotel operators, we have to understand that's our area of expertise.
Right.
I think the best thing we can do is follow published guidelines from CDC or World Health on items like that. The rest of it, I think, it's just upping the game in terms of those sanitizing practices, but making sure that there are visual markers for guests. In other words, try to have some objectivity and think about what you would want to see when you went in. If you were traveling, what do you want to see? I mean, if there was a crime spree in Garden City and they caught the person, everyone would stop locking their doors and go back to life as normal.
Right.
Remember back in early 2000s, you'd work at a hotel and an event planner or a meeting planner. First thing I'd want to know is, what are your green initiatives? Is your building LEED certified? Right. Well, that you could visually demonstrate that. How do you visually demonstrate sanitizing? This becomes a major priority. So I'm focused on doing the things that they can see, being transparent about it, and publishing it on not just your website in a paragraph or a narrative, but maybe there's a video. You need some pictorial showing the stuff being done. You need to have a brand product that you use that's credible.
So here's some things that I'm thinking about and that I'm concerned about. Partially, I think a lot of this is like the TSA security theater. It makes us feel good, but doesn't necessarily protect us in the end. The second thing is, practically, what if I'm taking a family vacation? And what if I've paid in advance a non-refundable rate and I show up and the hotel tells me I can't stay there? What am I supposed to do? I got through maybe the flight, but I can't get into the hotel. And what about if I'm attending a big event and my company, say I'm the CEO of the company, and I spent $15,000, $20,000 to get a booth at an event, and then they won't let me in the event? Who's going to be liable for that? Let me take that. That we need to start thinking about.
Right. Let me take that question, Glenn, for a second. And let's break this down to how serious this is. If you're carrying the disease potentially, you can kill someone. Everybody agree with that?
Yes. But what if I'm innocent?
Hold on. Let me finish. Let me finish. So you have a fever, and everyone is concerned that people with fevers are carrying the coronavirus. Potentially, okay, you can hurt somebody. So if you walk into that theater, if you walk into that convention, you can potentially hurt someone. If you walk into that theater, and just answer yes or no, if you walk into that theater with a gun, whether it's loaded or not loaded, will you be allowed to go in?
Right. That's a no.
Yes or no?
That's
right.
a no.
That's a no.
But
we hold on. Let me finish. We have to err on the side of being safe and very, very cautious. With that said, if I told you you can't come to my event, I will personally. I'm not telling what people should do. What I would do is I would give you your money back. I would, as a hotelier, I would even pay for your flight. And I would make sure you're whole and you don't feel ostracized and you feel that we've taken care of you. And if you're still mad at me and you still don't want to come to my hotel and you still badmouth me, that's fine. But I will not let you come in, but I will take care of you and make you whole. That's what I would do.
Yeah, but
everybody could disagree with me.
But I was running to get my bags. I'm moving quickly to get to the hotel. Maybe my body temperature is a little bit up because I've been quickly moving around. Then all of a sudden I might get myself into a situation. Now I'm not taking sides and saying what's right or what's wrong. I just want to put it out there that there are going to be certain things that we are not thinking about. The law of unintended consequences is going to kick in big time no matter what.
I'm going to err on the side of not killing somebody.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm probably going to get a lot of fan mail about that I'm wrong, and everybody's going to put me in some category.
That just takes us back to the issue that we're seeing today in society. The group of people that says we need to get back to normal, and the other group of people that says we got to stay on lockdown.
Hold on, Glenn. Glenn. That is getting back to normal. We are getting back to normal. I will travel. I will go to conventions. I will get on a plane. I'll be the first one on a plane. Matter of fact, we're working on a documentary right now. I may be on a plane way before any of the gentlemen on this show.
I hope so.
So I will travel. But if I do have a temperature and they tell me I can't go, if we go forward with this documentary work on, we are going to have so many high standards that we're actually going to quarantine ourselves for 2 weeks as a group before we even start shooting anything. Okay, so we are going to take ridiculous precautions if we go out and start shooting this documentary.
But once you go out in public, after the 2 weeks, you've been exposed. So,
but we won't. But the way we're going to shoot it, we won't be in public, and that's we'll talk about it another time. But my point being is, so we don't get each other sick. Right. We're not going to be anywhere near the public, so we don't get each other sick. So I'm not going to go travel with you unless I know for 2 weeks that you're 100% fine. And then if you and I are going to be separated on a bus for 2 weeks, traveling and being completely isolated by everyone, I'll feel a lot better. And that's whether we do it or not. That's hearsay, or that's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is, Glenn, is we need to open up. We need to start traveling as soon as we feel safe. But once we do feel safe, that doesn't mean that the mask and gloves come off. That doesn't mean that I can let anybody into my establishment that potentially doesn't know they have it, or they know they have it and they think that this business meeting is too important for their business, so they don't give a shit if they're going to go.
That's right. And that's going to happen because we see it right now.
Some guidance is going to be issued at the point when bans are lifted. So I think you're going to follow the guidance that those health organizations issue, and then you're going to fill in the gaps on that with what you think is going to create a greater sense of security for people that are coming through the doors.
Right.
So it is still take it one step at a time.
Because Grady, my concern for you and Nick is that somebody that's at the front desk that doesn't have the depth of experience that you have is going to be confronted with a situation that they can't handle, and it's going to wind up spiraling out of control quickly. And I just want to make sure that doesn't happen, that the hotel workers are protected, because there are dummies that are going to do stuff like Anthony said, I'm sick and I still got to get to this event. So everybody out there, I just want you to start thinking about this. Nick?
Well, I mean, there's huge potential liability out there. I mean, someone comes into your hotel or your restaurant or bar and says, I caught COVID and I want to sue you. I mean, where's the protections? No one's talked about that. No one's talked about if you do testing in hotels. It also may start to occur at the airport. if there's, the liability that you have to worry about in terms of potential discrimination. And I know that it's speculation, but damn it, we were around during 9/11, and we knew that there was going to be a ton of government regulation that came out. And guess what? It did. Travel transformed. We had the Patriot Act. A lot of things we did right. Some things we didn't do so well. But it changed, and it's naive to think that that's not going to happen from this. And Anthony, I'm sensitive to your point, and I agree with the heart of it. But when we're talking about hotels and lodging and travel, this could radically alter or transform luxury guest experiences or even moderate guest experiences to where it may not even be recognizable in a few years. And that's why I think that we should be challenging some of these norms and say, and I agree with you, how do we protect the at-risk populations? Absolutely. But how do we do so in a way that doesn't, in 1 year or 5 years, we don't end up in a place where we go, where the hell did this happen?
Yeah,
when did this happen?
Nick, we're talking about common sense approaches, right? So,
yeah.
And this is the first time that we've really actually done a show like this, that we're kind of all kind of having this conversation. Yeah. I'm getting pretty intense for the first time. Oh, yeah,
you are. I like it. I'm glad that we don't 100% agree on stuff. It's awesome.
Because I agree with what everyone's saying 100%. I am the first person to say we've got to take common sense approaches to saving our business and saving our economy. I'm the first person to say it, and I agree 100%. What I am saying is if I am going, I'm not saying if I'm going to a restaurant or bar, that wasn't the question, because if I go to a restaurant and bar, that's different. You're asking me if I am going to a conference with 30,000 people, and like the Wynn Hotel is going to start using thermal sensors to test everybody coming into their hotel. I applaud that. And I'm like, I don't mind walking through that. And if they say, I'm sorry, Anthony, you have 101 temperature, you can't come in here. I was like, okay, it's going to suck for me and my plans, but I am not going to make anybody else sick. Okay, I'll go do what I got to go do. I'll go to the doctor, whatever I have to do. So I agree with what you're saying. My concern, and as what you're seeing right now, common sense isn't common. And so we have got to put in restrictions to ensure that you, Grady, when you go out, you feel safe and that I feel safe. So Nick's level of safety or Glenn's level of safety or my level of safety may be different than yours, but you see that a common sense approach is happening. I get pissed off when I go to the Broadway show and they don't check my wife's bag, and they don't have us go through a scanner. That pisses me off. We're at Times Square. How do I know a bomb's not underneath somebody's seat and we all get blown up? So for the 2 seconds of inconvenience, so we have to get back to work. We have to get back to our economy, but we have to use common sense approaches. And if we're going to start going, in my opinion, if we're going to start walking in the streets and start yelling at our doctors and nurses, that's a problem.
Yep. All right. So we're definitely getting people's very strong opinions with this issue. I'm just waiting for that first lawsuit that's going to happen in regards to somebody getting denied something. So I do hope that government can get involved and create a set of rules like they did perhaps with the
How many fans did I just
everyone understands? No, I don't think you lost any. I don't think we've lost any fans or anything like that. But I do think people are passionate about this issue because our livelihoods and lives are potentially at stake here. So of course we're going to have very strong feelings about what's going on. I think though in the end that all of us just want to get through this, and we all want to be able to travel, and we all want to be as free as possible. And we're all concerned about all of these restrictions that are coming on us. After 9/11, I too was concerned about all the restrictions that were being put upon us. I felt very put upon. I felt that maybe my rights were being infringed upon, but I got used to it over time, and I understood that sometimes we need to make personal sacrifices for the greater good of society. And I do hope that whatever this turns into, we can all come to that opinion together. But this is America, and we are not all going to have the same opinion.
The first time I felt put upon during 9/11, I thought about that young lady who held her skirt down and jumped out the window because she was escaping a fire. She was trying to show some dignity by holding her skirt down as she's jumping out of the 50th floor window. So when I have to take my shoes off, I just think of her. Yep.
All right. Let's get back on track with something positive, guys. Tell us before we wrap up today, a positive story, a positive experience, something that's made you feel really good about your staff or your guests at the property level that you've recently experienced. Grady, maybe you got something you could share with us?
I've had a number of managers and employees come forward saying that they wanted to continue working without even getting paid.
Wow.
But they just wanted to make sure that we could sustain the Garden City Hotel and keep it in top shape so that when the bands did lift, we were ready. I thought that was really beautiful. There's a real sense of community.
Wow, that's really unbelievable, and I think that says a lot about you as a leader, that they would still want to rally behind the cause and rally behind you, even if they weren't going to get paid for it. Nick, what about yourself?
You know, we have a young man staying with us. He's Japanese, and he's instead of going home, he's a student. He's elected to stay here for a couple of months while things quiet down. And anyway, we learned that it was his 21st birthday last week, and we also happened to know that he was a DJ, and so we set up DJ equipment for him and set up some lighting for him to spin his music, and we brought a cake in, and it was a quiet moment because there's only a few people in the building, but it was a magic moment. And it's one of those moments that continue to remind me that even during these challenging times, we still have the opportunity to create some wonderful guest experiences within the means that we have. And I know that's a birthday that young man won't forget.
And one of the things I remember, Nick, when I first met you, the night I met you, there was something about your aura. Even now on a call, you're a very different type of guy, and I just remember your feeling of, you just want everybody to be comfortable. Like I've never been around anyone that just made me feel comfortable, and that whole hotel felt really comfortable. Whether it be the wonderful lobby that wonderful designer, remind me,
Gula's daughter.
Gula. Everybody that meets Gula falls in love with Gula, and she was in the lobby with us and bring us around the beautiful design. And just between her ability to design and your ability to make people feel comfortable, that hotel was just extraordinary. I want to ask you about that artwork behind you. What is that?
It is a painting here in our penthouse.
So and it's just a painting, or
it's the Death Star, Anthony?
Yeah, but it looks like
it's just a painting.
Oh, for a second, it looked like some kind of map, and people that from different parts of the country or the world put little like dots on that they were there. I thought that's what you're going to say. I didn't realize that because your head was covering it. It looked like a map.
It's a Rorschach test, Anthony.
Yeah,
what do you think?
That's a great idea, Anthony.
Please don't ask me to interpret that.
All right. Any final thoughts, guys?
Yeah, why did Anthony get so pissed off?
Because you're passionate, man. You're passionate. But if you want to get more pissed off, somebody put a great point. Sometimes then this is such a man thing that we didn't think about this, even though a man pointed this out. Sometimes women during their cycles have an elevated temperature. So you imagine keeping somebody out when it turns out just because it's part of their normal bodily functions, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another thing to think about. Nick, Grady, do you have any anything that you want to promote? Let's talk a little bit about your hotels, why people should stay with you, and how they could find you.
Nick, Grady, do you want to go first?
No, Nick wants.
We just want some people to come. That's all.
And you're at gchotel.com.
GardenCityHotel.com.
All right, great, Nick.
So we're offering weekly and monthly rates for people who want to quarantine here at the hotel. We've got 12,000 square feet of public space. It's wide open. We have our pool. Our fitness room is still open. We sanitize after each person uses it. And so we are offering live work options for people that feel cooped up. You can find us at www.LaPeerHotel.com, and we're in the design district of West Hollywood.
Great.
Gentlemen, thank you for both being on, and I love both your perspectives, and I'd like to have you guys on as we go through this because your ability to articulate both of your plans and you being in the heart of things is really, to me, the most important part of this. It's great to have Chip on. It's great to have Jerry on, and they really help all of us kind of understand what's going on and how our mindset needs to be. But you're there. You're in the ring. We're the referees and we're the judges, but you guys are the fighters. And I appreciate everything you're doing. I appreciate the strain it puts on you and your family, and I appreciate all the employees. And when we can, I'm going to go around and kiss every housekeeper in America.
And I consider myself more of the bikini girl in between rounds, holding up a sign, not really a referee. But trying to make Anthony laugh after this show.
I can't unsee that.
Well, that's all right. I won't make you suffer with my mankini. Grady?
Nick, did you want to say something? Somebody wants to say something?
Hey, Grady, I will. I'll try to beat Anthony on an airplane to come out and see you, even if for a night. I think it's important when we connect as hoteliers to remain connected. It's amazing what you're doing and your team, and I'd love to pop out and say hello.
Likewise, I'm a big fan of Kimpton Hotels in LA, so I'd love to come out and see you as well. It's been good to meet you.
You know who I miss in this industry, and I haven't seen her, and maybe I'm just not watching? Nikki, who basically helped build Kimpton Hotels. She is. We have to get her on. She is one of the great people, and I know that it's the end of the show, but I'll tell a quick story.
Equinox or something?
Yeah, I'll tell. No, she's out of the industry right now. But I'll tell you. I'll tell you a quick story. I get a call to run a hotel in New York City. That's a Kimpton, and then they were building 2 more, and I was going to be the regional guy. So everybody interviewed me. I get a flight out to San Francisco to meet Nikki. Mm-hmm. Nikki interviews me. Apparently, she liked me. I get a call from headquarters saying, "Hey, you got the job. Can you start in 2 weeks?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not sure if I want the job." And they're like, so I get a call from Mike, who I believe is now the CEO of Kimpton. So Mike, if you're listening, I apologize. And he called me up and he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Yeah, I don't think I'm going to take it because there's another opportunity I was looking at too. And I think I'm going to make a decision to take the other opportunity." And I'll never forget what he said as long as I live. He goes, "When you get sent out to see the CEO of the company, that means you basically got the job and we're telling her you're the person we want." So the answer is yes. And I won't tell you the few foul words he used. The answer is yes. So you have to take the job. I didn't take the job. You're still my friend, but that interview I had with Nikki really gave me a perspective that I've never had before. And she is one of the leaders and champions of this industry. And would love to have her on. So if you're listening, Nikki, please come on.
And I will say, hey, Mike DeFrino, CEO of Kimpton Hotels and
That's
Restaurants.
Right, Mike.
I've been trying to get you on my show for a number of years. I've sent you emails. I've sent you notes on LinkedIn. I've done all sorts of things. I've done all that I possibly can. But you never ever respond, and you never want to talk to me.
You never wait. Hold on. You never asked me because I have Nick. I have his.
Well, then you get him on the show because apparently he has no interest in talking to me. Nick, we do hope to see you on the show soon, Mike. We'll give you a great opportunity to share your story. Nick, you work for a great company. I'm a big admirer of Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants. They've done tremendous stuff. So while I'd like to see Mike on, I'm still a huge fan, even if he never does come on the show. And Grady, you know how much we love the Garden City Hotel. That's our home away from home. Anthony, do you want to say something else?
No, I just want to say that I want Mike on just so he can make fun of me and tell everybody how he thought I was an idiot.
Great. Well, if you want to stick around, Anthony, I can tell you how you're an idiot for as long as you would like. Grady, Nick, thank you guys for being here. We got to get you back on real soon because you guys are in the trenches and making it happen. Thank you so much. Man, oh man. Anthony, another great show today. I can't believe we're doing this day after day.
You know what my favorite moment of the whole show was?
Us yelling at each other?
No, when Chip told me that by me coming onto the show, it just made you look 1,000 times better.
Yeah, I know. I'm already trying to block that out of my memory. That's the only thing Chip has ever said that I don't agree with. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, but what I don't understand is like we started this podcast together. So I don't. Oh, he's probably saying just when you first started your business, right? The whole no vacancy thing, and because we've been doing this podcast for a while together. But I thought it was a good show. I thought, listen. You're not always going to agree with me, and people out there are not going to agree with me. But what Jerry and Zarella said yesterday is the truth. People want authenticity. You don't have to like me. You want to turn me off, never watch me again. I don't care. I'm not going to be one of those angry people. I've been very, very patient. I've been very, very I want to hear everybody's opinion. So I'm not going to get intense very often. It's just not what I'm really in the mood to do. I haven't been like, even at home, I've been the most patient human being in the world because everybody's going through things. The last thing they need to do is hear my intensity. But I am going to sometimes speak like I speak in Brooklyn. And that's with a lot of passion. So that's my authenticity. And I don't really give a rat's ass if people like me or don't like me.
All I got to say is, hey, forget about it. Don't you worry about it. You know, you gotta be real. You gotta be honest. And that's what we're all about here on our daily live shows every day, 12 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. All right. So if you guys want to participate in more discussion, check out Hospitality Success in the Facebook group there. It's now free because Anthony is so crazy generous, because we're all about helping you guys find answers to what you need. And of course, sign up for our newsletter. Text the word hotel to 66866. You get all of this great content and content you didn't even know was out there. That's hotel to 66866, and be aware for our Sunday night newsletter. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. Yes, sir.
1 second. At 2 o'clock on Facebook Live, I am going to be with my partner, Jeremy Pinkerton, as to what Glenn said, to talk about Hospitality Success company. But we're going to have a young lady from a hotel that was on Hotel Impossible. And she texted me last night and she goes, Anthony, I have questions for you. She was on years ago. She's one of my favorite people. And I asked her, do you mind if I talk to you online, live? So I don't know what she's going to ask me. So we're going to do a little bit of Hotel Impossible on Facebook Live at 2 o'clock. And Jeremy, I don't remember if I told you that, but if I didn't, get ready. Oh no, I did. I did call you this morning and tell you. But so I don't know what she's going to ask me. So we're going to do a little Hospitality Success Hotel Impossible at 2 o'clock on Facebook with a owner of a hotel, the Langford in Ocean City, Maryland. And it was one of my favorite shows and one of my favorite families in the history of families. So 2 o'clock, which is in about 25 minutes, I will see you, or actually 29 minutes. I will see you back here on Facebook if you're watching, or if you're on LinkedIn, go to Facebook Live. I'll be there at 2 o'clock.
Beautiful. Well, Anthony, that's great. Just enough time for me to grab a sandwich and then sit back and watch what I know is going to be a great show. All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll be back here tomorrow. Of course, I don't even remember who's on tomorrow's show, because we've been having so many great guests. Let me bring that up real quick.
Just think of who we had on this week. We had the president of Radisson. We had Jerry Anzarello. We had Chip Connolly. Then we had some great hoteliers, general managers.
Not Chip Conley. We got to get him though. Oh, tomorrow! Holy crap! Tomorrow's an insane show. Tomorrow we got executives from Marriott on. That is absolutely right. We got Manny Rappanecker, she's the VP of Global Brand Leader of Marriott Hotels, and Zach Michael Curry, VP Brand and Global Operations, Premium Brands at Marriott International. Wow, what a great show that is, man. We're getting such great guests.
You're going to like that show, because I'm going to let you talk, because I know you're really excited about getting them on. Can I get credit of producing that one though? Because you
did. You were the one who nailed down those guests, both of them. I had nothing to do with it, and I'm just honored that I'm going to be able to speak again on my show here tomorrow. So thank you so much for allowing me to participate. I meant mine as in ours, but that kind of a thing, because we are equal partners in this sort of thing. And all of you guys are equally loved out there. Thanks for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. And don't forget, 2 o'clock, Facebook Live for Anthony's show. See you guys then.
Love you, brother.
Love you too, guys.